In this module, I wanted to do things that were just maybe a little bit different than what we've done in the previous modules. I wanted you to be more of an investigator about some of these issues rather than just going through some material and producing something based off that material. So in this module, you're reading Kozel's book or a portion of Kozel's book. So I have provided several pages of instructions, but I'm going to go over kind of the general aspect of what you're going to be completing. And then within those steps, I've also given you some additional directions about, each step specifically. So the general idea is in Kozel's book, he's talking about some of the disparities inside of these larger urban areas. So he's talking about Chicago, San Antonio, places in New Jersey, New York, Washington, D.C. And so what he's trying to highlight is here's some schools that have maybe high minority, low or in high poverty, high concentrations of white and maybe high wealth. And so are there disparities in those schools? Well, based on his reporting, yes, there are disparities in those schools. His book was written in the late, or his investigations were late 70s, and his book came out in the early 80s. And so one of the things that I want you to do and kind of explore is, all right, well, are some of these things still happening? Do school disparities still exist? And specifically, are we seeing those same kinds of things happen here in Texas? So for the purposes of the assignment this week in your investigative kind of reporting here is you're going to choose two of the chapters from Kozel's chapters 2 through 5. So in chapters 2 through 5, he goes over Chicago, New Jersey, New York, and Washington, D.C. So you're going to choose two of those chapters to read about and produce a compare-contrast of those two chapters, a compare-contrast double bubble map, which again, I've gone over more specifically in the directions. And then in addition to that, you're going to choose one combination of an urban and suburban district that I've also provided for you in Canvas. And so I've given you some guidelines kind of on what you're trying to investigate there. So the general idea is, okay, here's kind of what Kozel reported. Here's what Kozel said. Here's what I'm finding in our Texas districts today. Are we seeing any things that are overlapping? Are we seeing some of these common themes? Are we seeing that yes, indeed, there are still disparities based on race? Is there a difference maybe in teacher experience? Is there a difference in the school resources or facilities? That's kind of what I'm trying to get you to look at, the big picture, and see if we can make connections between what Kozel was seeing in the 70s and 80s, and are we still seeing that problem 40 years later? So that's kind of the big picture of what you're going to be tackling over the course of the next 2 weeks. And so because I want you to really focus on this investigation part, and all of you are going to be investigating and reading some different things, there also isn't a quiz for this module. So you get to take the week off from completing a quiz and really focus in on these investigative pieces. So as you continue through the module, again, check on those video resources. I've left a little bit more explanation on each step. And then certainly feel free to ask me questions whenever you need to.